Kefir grains are a bit like the Mariah Carey of the fermented world. They can be absolutely magical, but they can also be a bit of work. And if you found yourself struggling to understand them, you're going to love this video where I answer the top 16 most asked questions on kefir grains. Not only will I show you what they are and how they work, but I'll also teach you how to use them the right way. And if you've been trying to get your hands on quality grains, stay tuned as I reveal my favorite place to buy them. Let's go. So here are some milk kefir grains. And as you can see, they're creamy and a bit gelatinous. And I know to the naked eye, they just kind of look like cottage cheese or tiny cauliflower florets. But guess what? Inside each one of these little grains lives an entire universe of live bacteria and yeast that are responsible for our health and responsible for turning milk into probiotic-rich kefir. And in case you're wondering, they're not really grains like wheat or rice. We just use this term to describe them because, hey, they kind of look like grains. Well, here are my milk kefir grains and my water kefir grains. As you can see, the water kefir grains looks much clearer and less gelatinous, kind of like crystals, because they really just don't have the protein component that milk provides. Apart from looks, the big difference is what's inside of them. So while water kefir grains also contains a diverse mix of beneficial yeast and bacteria, it is just nowhere near as large as milk kefir grains. I like to think of them as Batman and Robin. And obviously the other big difference is in how they're going to be used. Milk kefir grains, you can use them to culture cows, goats, sheep, or coconut milk. And really to a lesser extent, you can use them for non-dairy milks like almond milk. Meanwhile, water kefir grains, you can use them to culture sugary water as well as coconut water or fruit juice. Fresh kefir grains are kind of like fish, meaning they can't be out of liquid for too long. So if you're going to buy them, just make sure you get them shipped fast, and the minute they arrive, pop them in some fresh milk or sugary water, depending on which type of grain it is. If you're like me and don't want to worry about this when you buy your initial grains, then go with the dried kefir grains. You can see I have them right here. They're in their dormant state and they're shelf stable, making it pretty able to travel well. Of course, when you do receive them, you'll have to go through about activating them, which I'll talk about next. So when you get your dried kefir grains, you basically have a baby on your hands. And just like a newborn, it is going to need lots of nourishing food to grow into its fresh and active state. For milk kefir grains, that food is going to be fresh whole milk. And for water kefir grains, it's going to be sugary water. So water mixed with cane sugar. Now, I'm not going to lie, they need a bit of nourishing. For milk kefir grains, you're going to have to feed them increasing amounts of milk over the next 3 to 7 days. And once they're able to easily turn fresh milk into thick kefir, in about 24 hours, they're ready. Meanwhile, for water kefir grains, you simply need to feed them one big serving of sugary water and let them sit for 3 to 4 days. And once they're able to turn flat sugar water into bubbly water kefir, in about 24 hours, they're ready. You can see here, the bubbles are forming. Well, if your home is cooler than normal, it may take a bit longer for your grains to make kefir. And on the flip side, if it is warmer than usual, it can ferment much quicker. Ideally, you want to have your room temperature somewhere in the 68 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit range or 20 to 30 degrees Celsius. Since I live in Seattle, our house is usually around 69 degrees, which means a new batch of milk kefir often takes around 30 to 40 hours, and water kefir takes about 3 days. Kefir grains are so powerful that you don't need much at all to make a batch of kefir. For example, usually just 1 to 2 teaspoons will be enough to culture 4 cups of milk. Although being the kefir lover I am, I sometimes go with about 1 tablespoon per batch. Since they are packed with good bacteria and yeast, we basically want to make sure we handle them with care, meaning anything that could disrupt their balance should be limited. That's why it's best to avoid touching them with metal utensils, since metallic ions can react with the naturally acidic grains. It's also wise to not touch the grains with your own fingers, since the bacteria on your skin can transfer to them. Although stainless steel is somewhat okay, plastic utensils are best for handling kefir grains. This is what I love about kefir grains. They are just so simple to keep using. All you need to do is take them out of their finished milk or water kefir with a strainer or a slotted spoon, transfer them over to a new fresh container of milk or sugary water, and repeat. Best of all, if you take care of them, you can keep doing this indefinitely. For milk kefir grains, there's generally no need to rinse them between making batches. The only time you would need to do this is if they just stop making kefir properly. In this case, a good rinse in filtered water can help to remove any excess yeast buildup on the grains and get them back to being their best. Meanwhile, for water kefir grains, it's a good practice to soak them in spring water for about 15 to 20 minutes between batches. If you want to drink the milk as kefir, then 48 hours is about max. After this point, the grains will likely over-culture the milk and separate into curds and whey. Plus, the grains will probably start to run out of food to eat since they've most likely gobbled up all the lactose sugar. That's why for me personally, I'm pretty vigilant and want to make sure to always take them out after about 30 to 40 hours or so. Now, if you simply want to store the grains in milk and plan on discarding the milk later, then you can leave the kefir grains in milk for roughly 2 weeks. Just make sure to keep them in the fridge during the entire time. The easiest way to tell if they've died is to pop your kefir grains into fresh milk. Leave it at room temperature and then check back in 24 hours. If the thin milk has not fermented and taken on that thicker texture of kefir, then they may be dead. But before you throw them out, try reactivating them over 3 to 7 days using the activation process we talked about before. After all, they may not be dead, just really, really sleepy. And feeding them, it might just do the trick. If you're still getting nothing a week or two from now and find them discolored, chances are they're likely dead. If you want to take 1 to 2 weeks off making kefir, you can simply put the grains into 3 to 4 cups of milk and leave it in the refrigerator. Then when you're ready to go again, simply strain the kefir, discard the milk, and put the kefir grains in some fresh milk, and you'll have kefir ready to drink in 24 hours. If you want to take a few months off, then your best bet is to dry the grains. This is pretty simple. You rinse them in filtered water, then you put them on a non-stick surface to dry at room temperature for about 3 to 4 days. Once done, mix them with some powdered milk, pop them in a container, and refrigerate. Once you are a few months into your kefir journey and making fresh batches of kefir regularly, you might find your kefir grains are multiplying quickly and leaving you with just way too much. So what do you do with them? Well, my favorite option is to give them away to friends and family so they can start making their own kefir. The beauty of this is that they'll get to start with fresh grains and skip the tedious activation process. Seriously, how lucky is that? The next best option is to actually eat the grains themselves. This is super healthy because the grains contain their own unique beneficial bacteria and yeast. And due to the protective polysaccharide shell around them, they have an even greater chance of surviving stomach acid and then populating your intestines. From my experience, kefir grains, they can be quite slimy and chewy. So really the best way to consume them is to blend them into a smoothie. I know kefir grains can be high maintenance, so I'm not surprised when patients ask me if they can make kefir without grains. And the answer I always try to give is yes and no. You see, it is possible to buy a kefir starter culture, which is a proprietary blend of usually about 5 to 10 probiotic species that try to mimic the magic of kefir grains. And this powder is super easy to store and use. You can even reculture it a few times to create a couple days worth of kefir, but then it dies. And most importantly, a kefir starter culture doesn't produce nearly the same amount of diversity of probiotics as traditional milk kefir grains. So I like to think of it as milk kefir light, meaning it is not bad if you only want to make kefir occasionally, but not great either. Finally, there is one other way to try making kefir without grains, and that is by using some existing kefir milk. But given the probiotics found in kefir milk, they differ from those in the actual grain itself. Therefore, I really just don't recommend it. Plus, from my own personal experience, it can be really tricky and yield very inconsistent results. So although you can grow kefir grains at home, you just can't make them from scratch. And that's because the milk kefir grain culture is a very unique blend of microorganisms and polysaccharides, which it's just existed for many, many years. But thankfully, it is easy enough to acquire these grains from companies or even friends that already have the culture and are growing them, which I'll talk about now. You can find dried kefir grains in most health food stores these days, and of course online, but not all kefir grains are equal. Instead, you really need to make sure you buy them from a quality source that knows how to store and ship the precious grains without causing them too much distress. For me, I've tried so many different companies on my kefir journey, and there is one company in particular I love using, and I put that in the link description below. Not only do they have both high quality milk and water kefir grains, but they also have great starter kits with all the equipment you need to make kefir. So as we've seen, kefir grains are just magical probiotic machines, but they're also high maintenance. So whether you try milk or water kefir grains, you need to be prepared to take care of them. From my experience, as long as you buy from a trusted source and then use them consistently, you really shouldn't have too many issues. And most importantly, you'll be sending your gut billions and billions of probiotic friends every single day. Your body will thank you. For kefir grains, the big question I'm sure people would love to hear your answer to is, have you found a good place to buy high quality kefir grains from online? And if you enjoyed this video as part of our fermented food series, I'd love for you to join our Essential Stacks community by clicking the subscribe button below. We research the most important ways you can improve your digestive health so you can love your gut again. Bye for now.